So I was the smallest one. I was the smallest one on the defensive line, but I was real strong and got to U of H. Like I said, 4 years of high school. I went into high school at 165 pounds. When I graduated, I was at 180. And when I got to U of H, they said, don't worry about your weight, because I told them, well, at my size, I haven't been able to put on weight. So let me try to play strong safety. And they said, oh, no, don't worry about your weight. We got that covered. So when I went home for Christmas break, I weighed 230 pounds.
Whew. That's a transformation right there.
Yeah. and the older guy, Mr. Smith, that lived across the street from us, he asked my daddy, say, Willie, what they done did to that boy over there?
He done bulked up, huh?
Yeah. I got huge, man.
Good grief.
And like I said, in one semester.
Yeah, my brother got pretty.
Done it.
Yeah, remember how scrawny he used to be? Gosh, now he's just macho meathead.
Right. Major meathead.
Major.
But I think everybody's back on that. Actually, I had on earlier that I had invited.
Mm-hmm.
So,
nice. I think we just got someone else here. Good. Awesome.
That's your person?
Nope. Well, we got a few more people.
Few extras.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Appreciate it. All right. So before we were just interrupted there, we were sort of just kind of follow up from what you were saying before the Zoom shut us off, and then we can transition into the questions here.
All righty.
I think we were talking about a little bit about your background and how
I never got into it. I was talking.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. This is all good.
And I did mention, back in my mentor had told me I was sitting on too much information not to write a book. And I love reading books, but when I left school, I didn't want to do a whole lot of writing. I've written them research papers in college. I don't want to do no more writing. Mm-hmm. And so he told me, he said, why don't you put some of this information in a book? And so in 2017, I had already did a motivational ebook on Amazon.
Wow.
And so this was actually the first book I was actually putting in print and hardcover and soft cover. And that's how But Hey, What Do I Know was launched. And in that book, there are 10 chapters. I talk about the things that are hurting us as a community. And I start off talking about the man as the foundation of the Black home and the Black community. Then I talk about the role of the women. Then I talk about our kids. I talk about how we focus on sports as our only means of economic salvation.
Right.
I talk about how politics is destroying us. And I also talk about how for some reason, we think socialism is the way to go. And then the chapter that took me the longest to work on was chapter 8 or 9, one of them, where I talk about the Black church. And it actually took me about 3 years to write that chapter.
Wow.
Because I wanted to make sure I didn't mislead anybody with regards to their faith. Mm-hmm. And I'm a Bible believer. I still go to church. But in all honesty, the church has done us more damage than any other institution, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The Black church.
Yeah. I totally
There's so
agree.
many of them.
Yeah. I mean, you could see it with this newfangled prosperity doctrine now.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
sort of like a delicate balance, sort of a delicate balance of trying to explain how they have had such a pernicious effect.
Yeah. And I was on Google Maps one day and just decided to do a scan of my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And within a 5-mile radius of my house, there are 42 churches.
Wow.
Right. That's what I mean.
42 churches?
So many
42.
churches.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's in a what mile radius?
5.
5 mile
What?
radius.
Yeah.
5 mile radius.
Oh, my gosh. What?
And so we're the most over-churched people in this country, but with us being so over-churched, we're the most morally bankrupt.
Right. Right. So it's like somebody make that make sense.
Yeah.
Please.
You know, practically every black church in this country is surrounded by crime, death, and destruction.
Oh yeah.
So something's not adding up with us supposed to be so morally correct.
Exactly.
Something's not adding up with our supposed Bible reading and learning. Something's not adding up that's coming from the pulpit every Sunday. And see, when you start talking to people about having your church services, it's supposed to be a dialogue and not a monologue. One person, if they're teaching, they don't want to hear that.
Right.
There's nothing in the Bible that supports one person doing all the talking. Nothing. And so, you know, we hear about, you know, the preachers talk about Paul and saying how he preached for all of them all. If you look at Paul's words, Paul said he had a lot of men with him. Jesus had 12 that was with him. John had disciples. So these guys, you know, it doesn't matter what type of super, and I'm not denying anything that God can do, but these guys were not physically capable of just doing all that talking by themselves. That's why they took men with them. Because we're supposed to have a balance when the word is being taught. And if there's because you're supposed to have somebody that's up there correcting if there's error being taught from the pulpit. And so we don't have that at all. The pastor gets up there and teaches and preaches, and nobody is allowed to question anything he said from the pulpit. Nobody. Even if you have a woman and man that's going to church as husband and wife, the husband can't even tell his wife a lot of times in the black community that the pastor teaching error. Because a lot of the women in our community have placed the black pastor above their husband.
Wow. That is so true. Wow. That is so true. So why do you think that the black man has fallen into this docile role and sort of just allowed all this to happen? Like, where do you think that the black man fell short?
Well, I'm not gonna say it was the black man, because black man is not gonna get all the responsibility for that. All of this started on a downward trajectory with the civil rights movement and the Great Society, because the government came in, they were already paying black men less wages than they were paying the white men. And the government came in because if you go and if you study some of Thomas Sowell's teachings, he talks about how the black family before the civil rights movement and Great Society came into being, that in the black family, in over 80% of the homes, you had the mother and father in the house.
Intact. Yep.
Yeah, intact.
Yep.
And once we got the civil rights movement, it was like in the Great Society, it was almost like, here we go, we've arrived. So I talk in the book about the Great Society, the civil rights movement, and the feminist movement.
Feminazi.
And how,
Same thing.
you know, the Bible says a triple braided cord is hard to break. So we got all three of those things that went on in the 60s. And so you got the civil rights movement, we're fighting for social justice. But what's not taught us how many black men were becoming multimillionaires before the 60s. They never tell us that part of our history. And how many black men and women had reached that multi-million-dollar insurance roundtable because they were doing so much business. And so we had the civil rights movement. Then you had Great Society that said, we'll come in and be absentee fathers if you kick the man out of your house.
Yep.
And so I'm fairly certain there was a lot of debate going on within those homes where the man was pleading with the woman, let me stay with my kids.
Right.
And, you know, they used to visit the homes, the government would visit the home to make sure the man wasn't there anymore. And so the man had basically been reduced to somebody who's like in prison with conjugal visits. And so you'll come over here for your late night rendezvous, but you have to be gone by daylight in the morning just in case they do a visit. And then you had the feminist movement come around, and it was primarily a white women's movement, but they had to use black women, kind of like they use black people to push anything now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they got these black women and started telling these black women, hey, you're just as equal, you're just as good as that man. You don't need to bow down, you don't need to submit.
Yeah, because
you're just as good. You can be the head of your own castle.
I never understood how the black woman aligned with the feminist movement when black men had never subjugated their women.
Never. And that was the thing. And one of the things I talk about in the book is how these white women sold that bill of goods to our black women, because even if we go back to slavery and we go back further than slavery centuries ago, the white woman was never revered and honored like the black women were by their men. Mm-hmm. The white men always treated their white women as something to, as far as slavery, something to keep the family business going, but they had never shown them honor. They had never shown them true love. They were just a piece of meat, for lack of better term. And so these white women are looking at how these black men were treating their women, even coming out of a slavery and bondage situation where these men had to watch these slave masters rape their wife, rape their daughters, rape their women, in whatever capacity, grandmothers, aunts, and all of that stuff. And in spite of all that, our black men were still loving our women. And so now these white women are saying, how could these black men still love these women after the way my dad, my son, my grandfather have degraded them, but my own man won't love and honor me the same way that these black men are doing. So see, the feminist movement of the 60s wasn't the first feminist movement. That was the third wave feminist movement. They had been trying the entire 20th century to get that movement going, but it never caught steam until the 60s. And so they started pushing that to the black women, say, hey, black woman, come stand with us, come fight with us. And let's show that we can stand without the man. And what happened, black women started kicking their men out the house, and they started having to go into the workplace, because even back then, our black women were able to stay home and raise the kids. And so as soon as these black women had to insert themselves in the workplace, the white women swooped in and took the black women. Right. The black men. Correct that. White women swooped in and they stole the black women's husbands. And so our men got put in a position where, why am I continuing to fight to hold this thing together, and my woman is not willing to fight to hold it together?
So the black man consequently became sort of displaced.
Yes.
Right.
And then now we transition to the decade of the 70s, and then we start looking at, we have these movies like Superfly and The Mac coming out, which is now programming us for a whole new thought process as black men. Let's get involved in these drugs. Let's get involved with pimping and prostitution and all that, so we can make sure we put the black man in this role where now we can lock him up and make sure he can never come back and be a functioning member of society.
Right. And this was in the 70s, you're saying?
Yeah, that was in the 70s.
Right.
And there's a movie.
How were the white women able to convince black women to be a part of that movement when as you're saying, black men weren't degrading their women or anything like that prior to a certain time? So how were they convinced to go from standing by the black man through thick and thin to then being convinced to exile him from the house and the family? Like, how was that accomplished?
Well, that's why, I mentioned the Great Society as well, because the Great Society came in and they offered our women a little bit more money than the man was making. And so, not all women, but a lot of women are attracted to money. And so if they can still, in a sense, get their conjugal visits, and they can get more money over here from the government, and then the government can go attack that black man for leaving the home, and she can get more money via child support. It's a win-win situation for the black woman.
Right.
And the white woman is telling her, your man's been oppressing you, even though that wasn't the truth. Because women are listeners, and they will listen to another woman before they listen to men, a lot of times. And so that's the unfortunate thing about it. And so our women got caught up in the money game. for lack of a better term.
Right.
You know, we can get this free money from the government, and then we can have the government go after this man because he's not here helping me pay the bills and take care of these kids. And then I can get more money on top of that, and then I go get me a job if I want to. But in most cases, she didn't have to. And so why would I bring you back in if I'm doing better financially without you?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right.
And so not realizing the destruction to the family wasn't financial. It was moral.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that's where the breakdown came. And now we have, you know, for decades, we've had a lot of people talking about the black father, the black man is a deadbeat. Well, there's a book called Two Nations, and I can't think of the guy's name that wrote it. He's a white guy that wrote it. And he said, if you study the statistics, more white men are deadbeat fathers than black men. And this is a white guy that wrote this book. It's called Two Nations. But the media keeps pushing this narrative that the black man is the true deadbeat. And they don't give us anything, you know, and our women talk about black men won't step up the plate, but black men are not going to step up the plate and just accept anything.
Right.
And I saw a young lady post something the other day on social media and said how she can understand how young men can be raised in a household with single mothers, and these same young boys grow up to disrespect women. And I just typed in, I said, well, the answer is real simple, and I just left the post. I wasn't going to sit there and debate with them because I saw all these women who are all single agreeing with her. And
yeah, yep.
The bottom line is the reason these young men grew up disrespected and not wanting to honor women is because they watched the behavior of their mother.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so
I'm sure there's a lot of resentment there, you know what I mean?
Of course.
Just from childhood. And then you got to think about the mother having to play so many different roles, which, you know, adds to that resentment through the years, you know. It's an unbalanced household, you know, it's a broken home for a reason. So that imbalance creates all kind of destruction, you know,
and trauma
in the family. And so, yeah, I mean, when you have a mother raising, you know, the son, the daughter, the family, and working and trying to nurture an XYZ, you know, she's not built for that, not to do it by herself. And so, you know, not to put her down, but even as hard as she's going to try to do it, there's going to be some failure on many occasions. And sometimes, or, you know, there's a percentage of times that failure results in damage, trauma, which then breeds resentment from the children. You know, to me, that can kick out a lot of reasoning as to why black men have the kind of relationship with black women that they do today, whether it be following them when they shouldn't be, or resenting them in a way that shows that, you know, they have traumas that they haven't dealt with from childhood.
Yeah, and, you know, and that going back to the feminist movement, if you look at what happened, our women got separated from the men. A lot of white women moved in and took those men, but those same white women that were promoting the feminist movement never left their husbands. And so our women,
that's ironic.
Yeah. So our women are placed in a role where they're trying to, like you just mentioned, Dilon, trying to play dual roles. They're trying to be mother and father, and they're not designed to be that. They're designed to have a feminine role. They're designed to have a nurturing role. They're not designed to have to go out and mentally deal with men in the workplace on a regular basis, because now they have to develop masculine characteristics.
Exactly. And then they got to come home and try to change hats.
Yeah, and then they want to come home and try to be feminine.
Right.
But you've been fighting in a masculine dominated society all day, and you come home, and because they've had to take on this role, tried to take on this role as mother and father, they have a problem when they find a decent man who's willing to be a provider, who's willing to be a loving husband in their life, but they have a problem with the word submission.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
That's taboo.
Yeah, because they've been going at it by themselves for so long that they don't understand how to come under proper headship.
Right.
And so they keep battling, thinking the problem is the man. And the man, and y'all are men. We only gonna deal with certain behaviors for so long before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way we're made.
Absolutely.
And so we'll sit there and we'll try to work with you for a while, and after a while we're gonna move on because I'm tired of dealing with you.
Exactly.
I'm gonna move on to somebody that I think is gonna work with me and help me accomplish my visions, my dreams, and my goals. I'm not gonna stay here with you in your bitterness.
Right.
I was just telling my buddy Dilon the other day that it was an interesting stat that I just read. 51% of Black males are single and childless.
Middle age.
Single and childless, and 80% of marriages. 80% of marriages ended. Excuse me. 80% of marriages are ending in divorce are filed by women.
Yeah.
I've
heard.
Uh-oh. Gotta mute somebody. Not sure who that is. Uh-oh. All right.
Already tapping on some shit. Already they click on.
Hold up. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that.
Is that Glover?
Yeah. You can hear us, Myran, still, right?
I still hear you.
All right. Okay. We're going to actually segue into the first question here. All great information, Myran. We got to get you back on this show because you're blowing me away right now. All right. So go ahead, Dilon. Take it away.
So the first question we have written down here is why is there such an emphasis being placed on racism today? Like more now than, I won't say ever, but in recent history. Well,
as far as racism is concerned, in my opinion, and I always like to say my opinions are very honest, but in my opinion, I believe racism right now today is a misdirection play. Because whenever we have a sense of oneness with other races and cultures in this country, or we're unifying to do something together, take 911, for example, how the country unified. Color didn't matter, skin didn't matter, background, profession, career, none of that stuff mattered because we were unifying against a perceived outside enemy.
Mm-hmm.
But how long did that last? Because the system can't allow people of different cultures to unite, because when people from different cultures start uniting, they start exchanging ideas with one another, and they start saying, okay, hey, the system is doing this. So the system throws the racism card out there, and whites just as much as blacks are battling the same enemy who sits behind the scenes fanning the flames of racism, and that's the system. And when we really start understanding who controls the system, it'll make a lot more sense. So if the system style of racism doesn't work initially, we'll get an incident where a black person gets shot by a white person or a cop, because the system is going to do whatever it takes to achieve the desired results of division. Because when you're divided, you can't stand together, you can't unify.
Right.
So is racism a problem? Oh, sure it is. But I don't think it's as prevalent as we're led to believe. Racism was thrown around so much under Donald Trump that the word was mentioned by a black person every time they wanted to demonize it. Hey, now I'll admit the guy's brash and he might be crude, but I have to say, we are the most hypocritical people in this country because we said we wanted to vote a racist out of the office, and then we ran to the polls and voted for the most racist person of black people to ever run for president, this LBJ.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because he's a Democrat.
They don't believe Biden is racist.
No, they don't believe it at all.
Because he was the right-hand man of Obama. Like nobody, they just won't. Even though he's said
but
some of the most
he's
overtly said some of the most more racist things than Trump has ever said, and I still haven't been able to pinpoint a racist thing that Trump said towards black people to really make them feel like he's racist. But whatever. But Biden has said blatantly some racist things towards black people that you would think that the black people of today would hear and be like, okay, no, that's not cool.
If you don't vote for,
But he just gets the pass.
You ain't black.
Yeah, he told, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but he told Charlemagne the God, or whatever his name is, that if you don't vote for Joe Biden, you ain't black.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a video on the channel called "Joe Biden, the most benevolent racist ever," or something like that.
Man, like,
oh yeah. Biden is just the.
Could you imagine if Trump had said that in his when he was running for president or while he was president to be reelected?
See, in my view, Biden is like just he's like the smiling face that covers. He's the smiling face in front of the radical agenda.
Yeah.
Like
that's what he is. He's like the harmless, senile, doddering old man to prevent everybody from seeing what's actually really taking place behind the curtains. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I think that should suffice. So let's move on to the second question here. So,
okay.
And you can take as much time as you need to sort of explain this point right here. But are you in support of this newfound holiday, Juneteenth?
Well, my entire life growing up, my dad believed in celebrating Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a special day for him. And so my entire life, I remember him working on it once his entire life on Juneteenth. And he worked for the city of Houston for 32 years. Now, I support it without all of the fanfare that surrounds it now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still in favor of why the original celebrations took place. Now, and I believe it's a special day for those in Texas, because Texas was the last place to get the word of freedom after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed.
Right.
Because the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863.
1863, yep.
But the word didn't get to Texas to 1865.
65, yep.
And so, when they landed on the shores of Galveston. And so I personally think it's important to understand our history as a people.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason for a black person in Texas not knowing about this day before they made it a national holiday the other day. You see, Neal, if I'm correct, you in Michigan, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So most people up in Michigan, black people in Michigan, and I've encountered this with blacks from other parts of the country, they have no concept of Juneteenth because, on the West Coast, there was really no such thing as slavery. Mm-hmm. And so, most of those blacks over there don't know about it. And so because of geography, a lot of blacks don't know about it.
Right.
But we can't.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we can't keep sitting on our rear end waiting for somebody else to teach us our history, which is what we're doing, as evidenced by us as a people getting upset with Donald Trump when he made a huge spectacle around the day. Was that last year when he said, I've made more black people wear Juneteenth than their own people, or whatever he said to that effect. And black people got all upset and they started talking about how he made it important. But then I sat there and heard some of those same black people talking about, I didn't even know Juneteenth existed. So how you going to get mad at Donald Trump for saying what he said and you didn't even know that black people were celebrating it?
Right.
And so Joe Biden came out and making it a national holiday was nothing more than a bone. He's throwing the black folks a bone.
Oh, yeah.
Black folks up because of the legislation he's passed for all these other groups, ethnic and sexual, since he's been in office. So Juneteenth was just say, hey, you Negro, shut up. Right. I know what I told y'all before I got in office, but y'all shut up. Here a little bone for you. So they make it a national holiday that every federal employee now gets to celebrate. So it's still not a black holiday.
That is so true.
So, we always talking about we don't have anything for ourselves, but Joe Biden made it national holiday. So every federal employee gets a day off and they get paid for it now.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is true. I didn't, honestly, I didn't know much about the holiday. I had to study up on it myself. And yeah, I mean, I see nothing wrong. Whoa. You all right?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. That's
bad.
this Salvation
Oh,
Army
faithful.
chair right here. But yeah, again, I didn't know much about it, so I have no qualms about people celebrating it. My thing is, it's just like you said, just the entire patronizing nature behind it. It's just I don't know. It's like, why do it just seem like black people are just willing to settle for crumbs? Just
all the time.
And it appeases them to just accept whatever little crumbs and whatever.
Well, that's because we have nothing. So when people have nothing, it's like they're desperate for anything.
Yeah.
So when they get something like Juneteenth as a national holiday, you know, it's taken as a celebration, like an accomplishment.
Right.
Like it's actually going to help somebody.
Right.
Well,
help us progress in life. It's not. Sorry.
You know, if you guys, you said you listen to some videos, and you might have heard me mention Miles Monroe a few times.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And Miles Monroe said something years ago. He said, slaves hate the oppressor, but they still love their oppression.
Oh yeah. Jeez. Oh yeah.
And that's true even today.
Yeah.
Very much so. Like,
all right, you can move on to the next question there.
All right. So what are your thoughts on the NAACP Black National Caucus, Black Lives Matter, and the Black Church?
I know that's a mouthful.
You've talked about the Black Church, but so NAACP, the Black National Caucus, and Black Lives Matter.
Well, all right.
Yeah, I know it's a mouthful.
And the Black Church, if you want to throw in a little more about that.
Well, where does the NAACP stand on major issues? The NAACP only wants high-profile paydays.
Mm-hmm.
Where were they on all the other issues that have plagued Black America since their formation?
Right.
Now, what most Black people don't know is the NAACP has actually never been a Black organization, even today. Even today, we just have Black faces.
Really?
Yeah. The mere fact that color is in the title should have been a red flag. The people who founded it never considered themselves white. See, W.E.B. Du Bois wasn't a founder. He was just put in place as the face of it, as the editor to make it seem like it was a Black organization. But the NAACP is actually a Jewish organization.
Wasn't there a white woman
that
was like heading it up, but she was pretending to be Black, or am I misinformed?
Well, Rachel Dolezal a few years ago, was acting like she was Black.
Yeah, she was like, she had dark skin or something like that, and everybody thought she was
Black.
Black.
Went to one of them tanning salons or something.
And people actually thought she was Black.
Yeah.
She was like she was the face of it or something. The font head over it. Oh,
high position.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so the origination of it was founded by Jewish people, and it's always been their organization. And so and a lot of people have asked, how can I make that statement? Well, the NAACP was formed in 1909, and it did not get its first Black president until 1975. That's 66 years controlled by other people. So if it was a Black organization, it would have had Black leadership from day one.
Right.
And the only reason Jewish people founded the NAACP was to counter what was being done with the Universal Negro Improvement Association by Marcus Garvey and the National Negro Business League by Booker T. Washington. Because what history will never teach us, unless you really start digging deep, most of your slave ships were owned by Jews. And the Jews have always masqueraded as our friends. And so when they lost all that slave labor once the Emancipation Proclamation had granted the freedom, they were trying to find another way to get Black labor back so they can still build our economics. So they founded the NAACP because it was too many Black men and women starting very successful businesses. And so its sole purpose, the whole purpose of the NAACP was to destroy Black entrepreneurship and Black economic autonomy. And they have succeeded greatly. They have done nothing to improve the circumstances of any Black community in this country and the entire existence of the organization. Has any Black community seen a benefit for all of the chapters around the country? And all of us know the answer to that. They were instrumental in the Brown versus Board education and the Rosa Parks situation. And, you know, we could maybe say the Scottsboro boys, but it took almost a century to clear those boys. But do you ever hear them talk about reparations? No. And the reason you don't hear them talk about reparations is because a lot of people don't know the government's been giving them multiple millions of dollars for decades to go into the black community, but the black community has never seen them.
The government's been subsidizing the NAACP is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so even right today, when you see Benjamin Crump on TV, the only reason Benjamin Crump is on TV because there's a big payday coming.
You know who that is? He's the
NAACP attorney.
Yeah, the grifting lawyer that's always at these racial incidents. Yeah,
because I think he settled for, he got the George Floyd family, what, 27, 28 million. He got Breonna Taylor's family, 27, 28 million, something
Payday.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so if it's really about justice, why are we so concerned about the payday? You know, I'm saying, you know, money can never make things right, but it can help.
Yeah.
But he's not going to pick up, and nobody else in the NAACP is going to pick up any type of incident if there is no chance for a payday to take place, a large payday. And so that's the unfortunate thing.
Which is why they show little to no interest in the matters that are actually destroying the black communities. There's
none whatsoever. Because it's still not a black organization. They're still controlled by the Jewish people today, you know, even though they have a lot more black faces. And so the NAACP, the Black Caucus, and the Black Church, they form a cohesive unit. They're not going to allow blacks to come up economically because all of them are pandering for the system.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, speaking of the Black Caucus, in my opinion, it's been a joke since day one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't think of anything notable. I don't even, as far as I'm concerned, the Black Caucus is obsolete. I don't even know what they do. I don't even know what they've done. I mean, forgive my ignorance, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what have they accomplished since their founding? In the entire existence of the Black Caucus, they have had only 2 black Republicans, and they made life hell for both of them guys, with the most recent one being Congressman Allen West, who thrown his hat in and said he's probably going to run for governor down here in Texas.
Oh, man.
And so Allen West went in, and they made life hell. I think the other guy was back in the 70s, and I can't think of his name right now. But right now, there's a black Republican down in Florida named Byron Donalds.
Mm-hmm.
And he's tried to get them to allow him in. And he said the only thing they keep giving him is the cold shoulder. And we'll hear a lot of these black people in these congressional positions talk about the good old boys club, but they are doing it within their own organization. Anyone who's not a black Democrat is not welcome. So how can they accomplish anything when they block members of the opposite side of the house from joining and working with them? It's because they don't care what happens. And, you know, first of all, if you don't carry the same political label, they feel like, and I mean, they know if you come from the Republican side, you're probably going to be talking about building up some things in the black community. Mm-hmm. But if you're coming from the Democratic side, they know you're coming because you're in line with the thinking of the Democrats. Yeah. And you're going to come in and you're going to play ball. The black Republicans are not going to play ball, so they have to keep them ostracized.
Yep.
So the Congressional Caucus doesn't want improvement in the black community. They want things to remain the same. You see, if a Republican members join them, they're going to get exposed for who they really are and what they're doing. And because the Republican members are going to start exposing them as managers, the managers of black people for the system. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing they can't afford to let get out. Because and I don't carry any political label. You know, a lot of people, black folks get mad at me because I talk about Democrats. And they say, well, I don't hear you talk about Republicans as much. I say, well, stop voting for Democrats and we can talk about both of them together.
Right. My point exactly.
And so they want us to believe they're working on our behalf. So I'm going to ask the same question I asked about the NAACP. What has improved in the black community with all of these black Democrats controlling black communities across the country? Nothing.
Nothing.
So
absolutely nothing.
They're not doing anything. NAACP's not doing anything. Black Lives Matter not doing anything. You know, in my opinion, they're nothing more than a hustler organization too. Do I think Black Lives Matter? I believe Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in the organization Black Lives Matter.
Right. It's a semantic it's like a semantic wordplay. It's like it's what they're playing there with that mantra. Black Lives Matter.
Because when you go against the organization and say that you're not down with Black Lives Matter, it's to the ignorant, it sounds like you're saying you're not down with Black Lives Mattering.
Exactly.
It's like you can't express an opposition of the organization without coming across as a racist or a sellout.
Yeah, because I'm black. I married a black woman. My parents and siblings are black.
Right.
So there's nothing wrong with saying Black Lives Matter, but as far as the organization is concerned, it's nothing more than a shakedown organization. Right. And so I'm gonna ask the same question I keep asking. What have Black Lives Matter done with the money they've collected?
Oh, man.
Any black neighborhood or community in this country been enhanced by the donation?
Yeah, I think the founder just bought her house or something like that.
I think she bought 4 of them.
4. Oh my God.
In white communities.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. But Black Lives Matter to her, right? And so, I'll talk all night, but I'm gonna just touch on these subjects, because I want to talk about the black church.
Right.
And, so I might, I'm not going to talk too much. I'm going to just talk. But I'm going to talk enough.
All right, good.
But, as I mentioned earlier, this is where most of the destruction is happening in the black community. Like I said, 5 mile square radius around my house, 42 black churches. Now, once upon a time,
insane.
Wait, real quick, do they have like a what's the membership like? Do they have a decent amount of members, or is it just like?
Well, a lot of them are smaller churches, maybe 75, 50 members or less, but we do have some, as I heard, I've read something years ago by a lady, she called them cathedrals of commerce. So we do have some large pockets. A friend of mine was coming to my house one day and came a different way. And he said, I saw 3 large churches down the street from your house. I said, yep. and look at the neighborhoods that were around it. And so, at one point, the black church was a focal point of everything for us as a people. It was a place that slaves gathered and they made plans for the future, made plans to escape. And the slave owners would allow them that space of freedom, but they would put a black person in charge as an overseer of the meeting so they could report back to them what was being said. But the church was also a place where businesses were launched by black people. It was also the schoolhouse, so the kids got learning at the schoolhouse and the church as one building. And what many of us don't know, the way school started every day for those kids, they got up when they had to read from the Bible. That's how they learned to read, reading from the Bible. And that's why they didn't like Nat Turner, because Nat Turner knew how to read. But that's why a lot of the black churches were burned to the ground back in the day, because it was the stronghold of the black community. The people that were burning down the churches didn't care about the worship. They were concerned about everything else that was being taught, which is why the church was made the target. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, today, the black church has lost its salt. The Bible says we're to be the salt of the earth, but the black church has lost its savor, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Now, there are a few pockets. I've seen a few pockets around the country that are actually working to improve the communities around them. But as a whole, the black church is useless, in my opinion. And down here in Houston, a lot of people have complained about what Joel Osteen didn't do for the city of Houston in a time of need at Lakewood Church. But how many black churches open their doors and help in that same time of need? The black church does nothing in the neighborhoods they sit in. Nothing at all. They do, the back to school drives. They do the Thanksgiving and Christmas turkey handout. But if we think about it, is the church paying for that stuff? Or is it the people in the pews paying for that stuff? It's the people in the pews.
People in the pews.
The pastors don't come out their pockets for nothing. So the black church does nothing in the neighborhood, but they always have plenty of money to go around for other pastors to come in and fleece their flocks on Sunday, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday afternoon. And then they can hold an annual pastor and wife appreciation services. And what did the Bible tell us? The Bible said the thing we're supposed to be doing as believers is to care for the homeless and the hungry and the widow and the poor.
Right.
When was the last time a black pastor told his congregation that he and his wife are donating a love offering to someone in need? Pastors need a job or a business. They shouldn't be sitting there leeching off the people who are already struggling. We're struggling as a people, and these black pastors are sitting there leeching off the people that are struggling.
Just grifters.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And so these pastors need to find them a way to develop income instead of sitting there leeching off the church.
No shame. No shame at all.
And that's why I said earlier, we're the most over-churched people in this country, and we have high crime in the immediate vicinity of every church house in this country. It doesn't equate. And the old R&B singer Prince had a song called "Something in the Water Does Not Compute." And so here I go again. I'm going to ask the same question that I keep asking. Has the president of the black church and the black pastors made life in the black community better than offering a momentary feeling? I'm
gonna give that a thumbs down. All right. Let's move on to the next.
We get that 2 or 3 hour emotional high, and as soon as we leave, we go right back into our seeing willingly.
Exactly.
Well, even then, I was never a big church goer in my life, but from my knowledge and from my time that I have gone, and from people that I've known, that I've gone to church, that I've gone with, many different churches that I've been to, it's usually the same thing. There's a lot of politics that goes on in the church as far as rank and whatnot. A lot of gossip, a lot of drama. And then, like you said, people go there, they get their high, but that high is like, it's not the high. I don't know. I can't speak for everybody, but from what I've seen, the high it's not always like the high of worship. If that's the high you're speaking of. It's like the high.
It's a fleshly high.
Right. It's like the drama high.
Yeah.
And then, they can't wait. It's almost like they can't wait to come back so they can show off their church outfit, and it's everything but a house of worship from my experience.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah, because I saw a video on YouTube a few years ago, and the question was asked, is this a dance club or a church? Man. And a lot of churches have started dancing, and I mean provocative dancing in the church house.
Yep.
And we have people co-signing on this.
Yep.
Even like the pastors, though, I can't get with all the hooping and hollering and like the dramified performance.
Yeah.
It baffles me that that's the way to go about preaching the word across the board. Like that's a taught way of preaching the word or speaking on the Bible in this dramified manner.
Many shall come in my name.
I've never been attracted to that. I just thought it was like silly kind of.
Sheep's clothing. Think back a few years ago, when black people got all in an uproar when Don Imus called the girls from Rutgers basketball team the nappy-headed hoes. And then a few years ago, Pastor Jamal Brown up in Virginia, I believe, used that R&B song. I don't remember whose song it is, where he said, "These hoes ain't loyal." And I saw black pastors co-signing on that.
Wait. Wait a second.
Yeah, I've seen all kind of
stuff. You said a pastor said that?
Pastor Jamal Brown up in the Virginia area, I believe, is where his church is.
Oh my God.
I've heard pastors like take rap lyrics and twist it.
He said that from the pulpit.
Yeah. I've heard that so many times.
Oh God.
And I saw black pastors applaud that.
Oh my goodness.
And they try to use the Bible to justify him using that language in the pulpit. The Bible doesn't say hoes, it says whoremongers.
Right.
There's a difference.
Oh my God. Jesus. Lord, take the wheel. It's like, no. All right, Maya. We're gonna swing on to this next question here.
Okay.
It's maybe a bit rhetorical in the sense that we kind of touched on it, but nonetheless, which is more of a threat to Black America today? This idea of systemic racism or the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character?
Okay. Well, you know what? Yeah, we can touch on that again because
Yeah.
I'll delve into some different aspects
Okay.
of racism from a systemic standpoint.
Okay.
So, is there systemic racism in this country? Yes, it is. It's all across the world. It still operates. How can I say that? In the entire existence of the Forbes Fortune 500, we have had only 16 Black CEOs. We see it every day within the white companies we work for. We see others get promotions, and we know we are deserving. We know we've worked harder. We know we put in lots more energy, but for some strange reason, all of our efforts are never good enough for the system. This is one of the main reasons I've stressed Black entrepreneurship and Black economic autonomy. We have had too many Judases in our race that have worked on behalf of the system to derail our progress. So, although we have systemic racism, we have too much hate from other Blacks who don't do much to advance the race, especially if they've received an education from a predominantly white university. And so when a train is moving at a great rate of speed, it takes a while for something to slow it down. Mm-hmm. But if you alter the track before the train gets started on its journey, it's going to take a while to repair the track to start your journey. And that's what's been happening for years. The system won't give Blacks loans as willingly as they do other cultures. So yeah, systemic racism is an issue. So I'm going to agree that the system plays a part in our destruction, and I will never disagree with anyone on that. However, I learned years ago, don't say but because it negates the first thing. So however, we must fix our own homes first. If every problem we have in our community in America and around the world is caused 100% by whites, then that means only white people can fix it. How's that going to work out for us? They can't fix the moral issues in our communities. They can't fix the absentee fathers, the high out of wedlock birth rate, the amount of money we spend on liquor, the Black on Black crime wave, the selling of drugs to one another, the blatant disrespect of elders coming out of our houses with head rags and pajamas on, and a multitude of broken homes due to the irresponsible sexual behavior, which produces children all over the country that have to grow up in foster care, homes with only a mother acting as a mother and father, or blended families with a step parent doesn't show the same love to the other person's child or children, even though they say they're going to love them the same way. Right. None of those things I just mentioned are caused by systemic racism. Oh, we'll claim all day long that the system is responsible for our behavior. And I've heard it many times. How does the system make us have children at will? If you're going to do it, at least protect yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, liquor companies might put a liquor store on every corner in the Black community, but who said you have to go and support it?
Exactly.
Does the system make us have children before getting married? It's been proven that children born in a two-parent home have less of a chance growing up in poverty.
Nobody's putting a gun to your head and forcing you to have sex with that girl.
And nobody's stopping Black people from getting married.
Exactly.
For that matter.
We complain about the government putting drugs in the Black community, but who said we had to participate in selling that slow death?
Exactly. Oh my God. Exactly. We get that a lot.
All the time.
All the time. Like if a package of drugs dropped on your front porch right now.
Front porch.
What's forcing you to sell that to your neighborhood, to your community?
Exactly.
What force is that that's forcing you to go out there and just destroy your own community? Like, yeah. I don't understand that.
If anything, the glorification of selling drugs has done way more damage than the fact that the drugs were put in the community in the first place.
Sure.
Because like I said, nobody forced them to do anything, but once you glorify it and influence, the youth listeners for decades to listening to this music where they glorify being a D-boy and whatnot, that's influenced more people to sell the drugs than the drugs being just being
Randomly,
dropped off
right,
there
exactly.
Yeah.
in the first place. So
Yeah, and I mean, even talking about that slow death, is systemic racism the cause of us shooting each other because we're not going to let another brother diss us, or we want to show how hard we are?
right.
Yeah, when you get caught, you're going to be harder, right? Doing hard time.
Right.
And the message that we need to get out about something like that is when one brother shoots another brother, that takes two black men out of the community who can function
Exactly.
as providers and protectors. But because we have
Absolutely.
so many young men being raised by women, and I'm not putting women down,
Right.
but when our young men are raised by women only, they only know how to respond to conflict emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And they're not going to respond like
The hammer
girls
on the
do.
nail.
Cat fight, they're going to pull out a gun and shoot each other.
Exactly. The hammer on the nail with that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we don't systemic racism doesn't make us disrespect people. Even if people are rude and everything to you, that shouldn't change your character and integrity.
Right.
And so we see a lot of our youth disrespect their elders, they disrespect adults, they disrespect people in authoritative positions. I remember some years ago, back in 1999, I was going to work in Gulfport, Mississippi, and I had a young man in the car with me. And I got pulled over by a state trooper, Texas state trooper, because the car right in front of me slammed on their brakes right when we passed the state trooper.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we passed the trooper, I was too close on it. And so I got pulled over, and it was obvious that the state trooper was younger than I was. And I addressed him the entire time as sir. And so he didn't write me a ticket. He just let me go. And, he said, I know what happened. He said, but I still have to do my job and pull you over. And I said, okay, I don't have a problem with that. But the entire time I addressed him as sir. And when we drove off, the young man in the car asked me why I addressed him as sir. And it was obvious he was younger than me. And I told him, I said, because he's in a position of authority. And even today, I still address men as sir and ladies as ma'am, even if they're younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
Sister, another issue that's really, my wife will tell you, this issue right here burns me up like nothing else. Systemic racism doesn't make us throw trash out of our car windows and dirt trash of our neighborhoods.
Right.
That's a moral issue.
Right.
So until we address these moral issues and get unified, that's the key. Unified as individuals first, and then because we have to work on ourselves first. That's the only way we can improve our families. Then when we improve our families, we can improve our neighborhood and community. We can start branching out.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing, no legislation, no laws, no organization is going to come in and fix anything moral. That's a personal decision. So until that gets right, nothing in our community is going to work. And I mean nothing. Exactly. We have to make a concerted effort to fix ourselves first as individuals. And if we did this and we taught our children to do that as well, not only with our words, but also our behavior, we're going to see some walls come down that previously been sitting up in front of us. Right. And I'm not saying all walls are going to come down, but a lot of them will.
See, I'll just say mine, I'll speak for myself, but my issue with even giving systemic racism the nod is that, unfortunately, a lot of Black people use this systemic racism concept as an excuse as to why they haven't succeeded in life and why Black people have not progressed over time. And it takes away from the accountability of our own actions, like you've mentioned, individually and as a people, as a collective. And we've talked to people from different walks of life, different areas, and we could probably put together a collage of people just, using, what the white man did, through systemic racism at this time and that time, and then using that to justify behaviors of today. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it doesn't take all this extra stuff. It doesn't take the Democrats and XYZ. We could make the changes needed in our neighborhoods today. Yeah, if we really wanted to make a change, we don't need, the Black Caucus and Black Lives Matter and Al Sharpton. We could literally get together, speak on the obvious and then start making changes within ourselves, within our households, within our communities, and then within our people. It starts, within, and then it spreads outwards.
Well, I disagree. I think we definitely need L Sharpton.
Yeah,
I'm just
to go further down the toilet.
I'm just kidding.
but so that's my issue with systemic racism. And furthermore, I just can't. I don't know. I can't really pinpoint what systemic racism is stopping Black people from accomplishing today as a whole. I mean, are there people out there, white people or whatever, that might not like Black people? Sure. You know what I mean? Are there Black people that don't like Black people? Sure. Are there Black people that don't like white people? Sure. But I just can't find where systemic racism is stopping Black people from doing the necessary things needed to be done to progress in this society. I just can't find it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we have a lot of pockets of success, and that's outside of the system things. And the problem is a lot of those people get marginalized, and they're not allowed to. They don't have a voice, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
And so, back to that book I mentioned earlier by Miles Monroe, The Burden of Freedom. He said people don't really want freedom because freedom requires responsibility.
Right. And that right there, man, I'm telling you, it's
a traumatizing realization.
That really could be it right there. Like, because I think a lot of people know, and Black people know that if they were given this opportunity, if we did start, like you said, coming together and doing these things and X, Y, Z, that would take a lot of work. It would take a lot of responsibility, accountability. It would take a separation from this mentality of dependency on the same government or group of people that you call racist, which doesn't make any sense because a lot of Black people are dependent on the government, unfortunately. Yeah, and then they then turn around and call the government racist, but you don't want to put in the work to be independent from this group of people that you claim are oppressing you. So that the work aspect that would come from that would come as from taking the responsibility of yourself and your actions and your family and XYZ. I think people are for sure shying away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I've had people tell me over the years that it seems like all I do is complain when I talk about the issue, and when I start talking about the solutions, they don't want to hear them. Because I've said several times, we can show us how to empower ourselves as a community, regardless of your income level.
Right.
And if we could just learn to work together, whatever your income level is, we could show you we could create a fund where all of us could donate based on income level. And we have several people that's watching the money to make sure nobody dips their hand in. And then we can collectively take those dollars and do more as individual neighborhoods than every other Black entity available.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
And so when I start talking about that, then I say, well, I don't want to give any money. I just want to do something. Well, no, it just doesn't work that way.
Right. No. And everybody knows that except for the people saying that. I mean, like, it takes money to get things done. And like, money isn't everything, obviously, but to get things done, certain things, it takes money. It takes a collective front, even when it comes to business, when it comes to movements, X, Y, Z, like it's called business.
And that's why your Black politicians don't listen to you, because we have no money. We have no economic power.
Yeah, no economic power.
And I said, if we could collectively put some money behind our words and actions, I guarantee our Black politicians will start listening. And I tell Black people, I said, if we get some collective economics, I said, I guarantee you change the way you vote.
No, you're right. Cultural capital. I mean, the Jews have it, Asians. They can go to their relatives, to their family lineage, and extract those funds and acquire these inheritances and all that. We don't have that cultural capital.
And that's why
and without that, it's like you're not going to get a seat at the table if you don't have cultural capital or economics. I mean, and who are we? It's almost like we want white people to put us at the table.
Yeah,
like complete. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, we have to put ourselves at the table for the world to respect us. That's how it is. The Jews had to do it. The Asians had to do it. Whites had to do it. You have to do what you have to do to put yourself at the table. Nobody's gonna put you at the table. And so if you don't want to put in the work to get yourself at a seat at the table, then don't. But then don't complain about not being at the table, and don't blame other people for not being there. Yeah, I'll acknowledge that. The history of Black Americans and whatnot is a darker history. It's not anything to smile on.
Well, there's a movie
for that matter. I mean, a lot of different races have histories. I watched a documentary not too long ago about this is kind of beside the subject, but I watched a documentary not too long ago on Netflix about the history of Japan.
Okay.
And they were talking about the samurai days and how feudal Japan and just I can't remember all the details, but they were just talking about how Japan came to be and how they had wars with China and XYZ. But the whole documentary was pretty dark. A lot of people were dying. A lot of people were slaughtered.
It's all about conquest, conquest.
But Japan, Japan has a history, is my point. And, so you can either Japan, or the Japanese can either hold on to the dark side of that history and let that bring them down as a people, as a nation, or they can recognize that, we have a history, things have happened, but they have now moved forward as a people and they're, to my knowledge, thriving. So my point is, Black Americans we have a history. We were once slaves. We were brought here as slaves, and then XYZ occurred. But the fact that we're holding on to it as tightly as we are with anger, I think that's what's one of the main contributors as to what's holding us back, because we won't let go we won't just look at it for what it is. History. It's something that happened. And if you're either going to stay stuck there and living in the past and angry and bitter about it, which is going to, hold you down, or you're going to recognize it for what it is and then, become stronger off of it and move forward as a people. But when you talk to Black people today, they're still so angry about history. And and then I think
the reason that takes place is because it gets reinforced in the schools on a regular basis. They have to keep putting the slavery aspect in front of our youth because they, in a sense, want us to remember where we came from and where we should still be.
And producing movies and all that.
Yeah, I've never watched any of those slave movies for a reason.
12 years a slave.
Man,
God.
I just won't watch them. And I'm of the mindset that we shouldn't even teach our kids anything about slavery until their last year of middle school or first year of high school.
Right, when they can handle it.
Ready to receive it.
Right.
Because we learned about this stuff when I was in elementary school. And that's all I thought our history was slavery and civil rights.
Right.
That's all I knew. That's all we were taught.
Yep.
And as I studied more and more, I started understanding we have a rich history. But they're trying to keep that hidden from us. And, you had two guys in the 50s and 60s, multimillionaires, a guy named S.B. Fuller, multimillionaire, owned several businesses, employed thousands of people. And you had another guy named A.G. Gaston, multimillionaire. And they kept arguing every year about which Black man was the wealthiest. And these guys were employing Blacks and whites. And we were never taught that in school. We were never taught about Reggie Miller. Is it Reggie Miller? Not Reggie Miller. Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun is the name of the book. I can't think of Reginald Lewis. But he was the first person ever in this country of any color to complete $1 billion business buyout. And we were never taught that in school. Of course, when he did that, I was out of school or close to it, but we're not being taught those things. We might get a pocket of Madam C.J. Walker's wealth, but we didn't learn about her mentor, Miss Malone, who was richer than her. And she was so rich in the 1920s that every HBCU that was in existence, Miss Malone would pay tuition for one boy and one girl full ride every year. Damn. That's just how much money she had. And we had almost 100 HBCUs at that time. And she was paying tuition for 2 students to attend every HBCU in this country every year.
Wow.
And guess what happened? She married a guy, and the guy went to the NAACP and told the NAACP he built a business, and the NAACP worked with him and stole all her money through a lawsuit.
I gotta read up on that. I gotta read up on that. Wow, that is treacherous.
It really is. You know, we were not taught about the Black family, and I can't think of the name right now, but they were building cars long before Henry Ford. And when Henry Ford came around with the Model T, because it was coming from a white guy, we said the white guy got the better product, so we're not going to block C.R. Patterson and his sons. And so when everybody started going to get Henry Ford's Model T, they stopped buying the cars from the Black family, and they started buying Henry Ford's cars. So they had to transition and start building buses. And so we still deal with that today because we believe white products bought from white people are better than products bought from Black people. Not understanding that the system, you know, and it's part of the systemic racism, the system will not allow Blacks to come in and buy products at the same price that everybody else can buy it for. And so the Black people end up having to price their products a lot higher than competitors in order to stay in business because they had to pay a higher price for it. And the whole premise behind that is to make sure that Black business can't succeed. See, we don't understand when these foreigners come in and open these establishments in the Black community, the government allows them 5 years tax-free so they can establish their businesses and get a foothold in the Black community so we can't build there.
Right. It's calculated. It's all premeditated.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. All right. We are down to the last question here. It's sort of a fringe topic.
Okay.
But if you don't mind, can you speak briefly about the Blacks Eugenics program? Because I know you made a video sort of diving into that a little bit, and whether or not it's still being implemented and put in practice today.
Well, this is a big one. But,
I know.
You know, I would recommend, I'm going to do what little diligence I can here.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that.
It's late, but I would just recommend, anybody that's interested, go to the channel and
absolutely.
I don't remember the title of the video, but I think it might be colorism and caste or something like that.
Okay,
I think that might be the title.
Okay,
but
I'll put the link in our video too.
Okay, but eugenics has always been a part of our community, and it still is today. And the most recent example I can think of is the NBA Finals a few years ago, when they were trying to put the light-skinned team versus the dark-skinned team. And if we go back and study, men we adored that were in Black leadership positions, almost all of them were big proponents of eugenics. And see, what most of us as Black people don't know, our HBCU's entire curriculum in the first half of the 20th century was based on eugenics. It was given to them by whites and Jews. And they were telling them, you keep certain elements out of your community, out of these schools, and the ones that come in, you teach them to look down on your other Black brothers and sisters. And so we were proud to hear about the talented tent when W.E.B. Du Bois pushed it, but he wasn't the one that coined the term. It was a guy named William Story, I believe, that coined the term the talented tent, and he pushed it on W.E.B. Du Bois, and W.E.B. Du Bois ran with it. But the talented tent was nothing more than a eugenics-based group of people who thought they were actually the cream of the crop of the Black community, and the rest of Black America were low-level individuals. Wow. And we also don't know all of your fraternities and sororities at these universities are also part of the eugenics movement, male and female. And so they started out as eugenics-based organizations. And as much as I promote Booker T. Washington on my channel, the thing that saddened me the most about Booker T. Washington was finding out he was a proponent of eugenics. Now, I know most people don't realize that HBCUs used to require Black students to submit a photo of themselves with their application. And the reason being was if that potential student was too dark, the application would be thrown in the trash automatically. And that student would be automatically rejected because they were too dark to represent the race. See, they felt that if you had any trace of white blood in your system, you were of the mulatto class, you were considered the better Black person.
Oh yeah, Thomas Sowell talked about that.
And so
yeah. Wow.
That's what we were dealing with. And so-called Black leadership was even telling Black families, they were actually holding conferences in the early 20th century, telling Black families that they didn't consider it intelligent enough, that they needed to get sterilized so they wouldn't be able to produce more imbecile children, according to them. And so those Black folks felt, like I said, that the lighter skinned Black folks were, like I said, more accepting to white America. And that's the whole thing, premise behind the eugenics movement.
Wow.
They want to come across as more accepting to white America.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to definitely put the link to your to that specific video because it was very insightful when I listened to the entire thing. It was very insightful. Myran, thank you for coming on to the show. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to promote?
Well, I want to thank you guys for, finding me first and foremost. And, and I talked about the book. The name of the book is But Hey, What Do I Know? You can get it at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or if you want it personally autographed by me, you can email me at myronjones@gmail.com. The price is $20 plus the small shipping fee. Okay. And we can get that out of the mail immediately, if you want it.
Absolutely.
But like I said, But Hey, What Do I Know? It's got a few ratings on Amazon. I think it's like 12 ratings or something on there, but I think they're all 5 stars.
Nice.
I don't know all the people that's on there. I know a few, but I don't know all the people that bought the book. I think some of the people bought it might have, been recommended by my mentor. I don't know, but I never met them. And, like I said, I upload.
It's an amazing feat. I mean,
I upload to my YouTube channel every 2 weeks. Back when, October, November, and December of last year, I was doing a video a week. And like I mentioned earlier, I released 2 videos on one day. I told you about one of them already, Joe Biden, the most benevolent racist. And the other video I released that day was Donald Trump, the most, what was Donald Trump? It was a Donald Trump video, but I talked about how he did so many beneficial things to the Black community, but he gets labeled as the racist.
Right.
And so I go in and I cite a lot of examples on that video of things Donald Trump have did for Black people. Even Jesse Jackson, when Jesse Jackson was struggling with the Rainbow Coalition. And he gave Jesse money and, he told Jesse, he said, get your business up and running. Don't ever worry about paying me back. And then you look at how Jesse Jackson has treated him in recent years.
All turn their backs.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wow.
And so, he's the one, he donated money to get Al Sharpton's organization started when he was in high school.
Yeah, they were all friends. Everyone.
Well, I mean, we all know that Trump was never even called a racist, even though he's been in the eye of the public since forever.
Yeah.
He was never looked at or called a racist until he became president. So, to my knowledge.
I do have a few T-shirts with the title of the book, But Hey, What Do I Know? And then they run about $20 a piece, depending on your size.
Nice.
So,
nice.
Those are available as well. And I forgot who recommended I do that. I think it might have been one of my buddies on here tonight. He might have been the one who told me I needed some T-shirts.
Yeah, get the merch.
I had never thought about it, and I did it on a whim off of his recommendation.
You got to get the merch.
Right. Yeah.
Well, again, man, we are honored to have you.
Much appreciated.
Very, very much appreciated. I mean, your time is valuable. We appreciate you giving us that time. And thank you for inviting all the lovely folks to listen. Appreciate that as well.
Much love.
Like I said, I appreciate you guys having me.
Yes, sir. Until next time, I will. I'm gonna download this and I'm gonna send it to your email. And if you got any questions, any follow-ups, just let me know, man.
Okay. And we have to do this again in the future.
Hey,
Absolutely.
we will. We absolutely will.
And
There's only a few of us.
Yeah, it's just a few of us. We gotta work together, man. Collaborate.
exactly.
Take care, man. You have a great night, and God bless you.
Y'all do the same.
Thank
All right,
you.
man.
Peace out.
All righty.